Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people seem to think that they can have or do what they want because they're special. And in today's episode, oh boy, a Karen refuses to let EMTs save her dad and attacks cops after they save her dad's life. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So I'm the owner of a landscaping business that my father started. He retired last year. He still checks in and helps a lot on the business end of things until I get my footing. We work in a city in South Florida, and about 90% of our customers are above the age of 60. My dad has 3 clients that we charge a very low rate because they've used him since the start of his business. 2 out of the 3 are great. They understand that they're being charged a low rate and they love us for it. But we do have one Karen that's very hard to deal with. My dad refuses to let go of her contract without a legitimate reason. That's just who my dad is. She has 2 daughters and they both own homes with their husbands. So the other week, we get a call from this Karen asking us to take on her daughters. I told her if she'd like to give them our number and I can talk with them and get it figured out. Now, I was doing this as a favor to my dad really because adding the 2 extra properties right now stretches us pretty thin. So one of the 2 daughters calls in and they give me their details, and I told them that I could come out and meet them and give them an estimate as soon as possible. This was met with a few seconds of silence, followed by, my mom had told me about the rate she paid, and we were under the assumption that we would be paying those same rates. I tell her, unfortunately, we won't be able to do that, ma'am. We gave her a special discount for being with us so long. The daughter says to me, well, she's my mom, and I'm sure she won't be happy to hear about this. I just say okie dokie, and then click, she hung up the phone. So I don't think anything of it, and I tell my pops what happened, and we had a laugh about it, and how entitled the people where we live are. Later that night, I get a call from the mother, aka Crazy Lady. As soon as I pick up the phone, she starts screaming at me saying, let me explain something to you. We have a way of doing things in this town and you just broke rule number 1. The customer is always right. You told me you would take on my daughters and I expect you to do just that. Got it? I say to her, I told your daughters that I could take them on, but not at the same rate. I never said I would be charging the same rate. She says to me, yes, you absolutely did, and I expect you to hold onto your word like your father would. I'm telling you that he would be so disappointed in you right now, and I can't even believe that you're the one who took over his business. I say to her, okay, ma'am, I'll see what I can do. She tells me, you'd better, this is not how you do business. So with that, I went to my dad and I told him about it. He just told me to end her contract, and I told him I had a better idea, and he agreed to it. Now, I say contract, but it's just a monthly billing for her contract, due to it being so low. So I call her back the next day, and she answers saying, hello. I say to her, hi there, Mrs. Karen. It's me, your landscaping company, calling you back. She says to me, well, I hope you have some good news because I still feel slighted. At that I say, oh, I do have some good news. We will be giving your daughters the same rate as you insisted. She says to me, perfect. When can I tell them you'll be over? I'm glad you came to your senses. And that's when I drop it on her and say, we'll get to that, but first, we have to discuss your new rates. Hearing that, she says, what new rates? I didn't agree to new rates. If you think that I'm paying a dime more than I already am, you're mistaken. I say to her, well, you've requested your daughters pay the same rate as you. So with that, we've decided to take away the special discount we've given you, and your new rate's gonna be $800 a month. And that'll start 2 months from now. Now, what came after was incoherent screaming and her hanging up. She did call back the next day, but refused to talk with me. She wanted to tell my father how I'm destroying this company, and tried talking with my cousin, but he referred her to me. She then tried getting a hold of my dad, but he shut off his work cell phone a long time ago. She eventually calls back, and she tried to negotiate with me, but I told her it was all at her request, and it's too late to go back on it. She dropped us the next month. She had been a thorn in my dad's side for so long, and he was relieved when I told him about the call. He didn't want me to have the extra stress of dealing with her anyway. Guys, I absolutely love this, and it serves her right for trying to tell OP how to run his company, right? With that said, guys, I think she's a little confused about the rule number 1 that she tried to force on OP. Rule number 1 is not that the customer is always right. In this situation, rule number 1 should have been that when you're getting a massive hookup, don't mess it up by being an entitled Karen. I'm also glad to know that the business is running well enough that OP can afford to fire clients like this. And this person shares their comment that says, I just remembered this one from a few years back. I used to work nights at a hotel. And back then, the manager would place ads with coupons advertising rooms at a discount. In general, these coupons were a real pain in the ass. They clearly said not valid on weekends or holidays and had expiration dates. I would regularly have to argue with guests because they were trying to use them in violation of the terms. Anyways, one day, this guy comes in, and he slaps a magazine with one of our coupons down on the desk, and he stares me down. I sigh internally and take a look at the coupon. It's a couple of months out of date. I say to him, sir, our rate for the night is... He stops me right there and says, I know the rate. I'm not dumb. It says it right here. The guy then jabs his finger into the magazine, just about punching a hole in our marble counter. He says to me, now you're gonna honor this coupon, or I'm gonna call my friend who owns this company. He'll make you honor it. At this point, I really want to tell him to go ahead, because if he really knew the owner, he'd know that the company is a franchise and each hotel is privately owned. Instead, what I say is, absolutely, sir. You see, what I was going to tell him before he cut me off was that his coupon was out of date, and it was from the height of tourist season. And since the season was over and we'd already gotten snow, our regular nightly rate was almost half of what his coupon said. But since he was so insistent that I honor it, I did. I saw no reason to not charge him almost double what everyone else was paying. See, this is why you always let someone finish speaking, guys, and not interrupt. And that's the tax the guy had to pay for being such an entitled a-hole. And honestly, if I were in OP's shoes, I think I would have made him sweat a little by calling his I know the owner bluff. Like, people who try that as a scare tactic on employees to get what they want deserve to be called out and embarrassed over it. So here's a bit of context. I live in Italy, and I've been an EMT for quite some time now, and I thought I would share this incident. So on this night, me and my other colleagues were on a night shift. At roughly 6 a.m., we get a call. It was an old man, unconscious, not breathing. The guy fell from the stairs. Needless to say, we run to the ambulance and we took off as fast as we could. When we arrive, we're at a small house, and a middle-aged woman in her late 40s or early 50s is waiting for us. I asked her what's going on to try to find out more information, while a few run inside to check on him and get everything started. The woman explained to us that he took some sleeping pills and he must have felt thirsty, or maybe needed to go to the bathroom. He didn't turn the lights on and he fell from the top of the stairs. So I went inside and I find an old man in his mid-60s laying on the floor. The man had a deep cut on his head, and one on his forehead, and bruises all over his body. He surely did fall from the stairs, no doubt there. I tried to wake him up by calling him, giving him some taps on the cheek, and even pinching him. Nothing. I then checked for his breath, and there was none. There was no pulse, no blood pressure, a saturation that was below my own shoe level, nothing. So we start all the procedures. The driver brought the woman into another room, as it's best to have the least number of people around for safety reasons. I called dispatch back to tell them that we started procedures and to send medical personnel at once. We had just started procedures to try to bring the man back to life when the woman comes back screaming at us. The woman screams at me and says, "What the F are you doing to my dad? Leave him be. You'll kill him." I say to her, "What? We are trying to resuscitate him." The woman says, "Do not resuscitate him. That's an order." I tell her, "Lady, it's our job to try. Not only is this the best option, it's also mandatory for us to try." The woman interrupts me with more screaming and says, "Don't you dare touch him. I don't care." We ask why, and she says, "Because he's my father, and I can decide what to do, and you can't resuscitate him unless I say so." I tell her, "No, you can't decide that. We'll do what we have to do to try to save him. This is your final warning." 8 years of being an EMT and 1 year a supervisor gave me quite an authoritative voice. She finally backs off and quits screaming. We start trying to save the guy. Meanwhile, our driver was doing his best to keep that poor excuse for a human being away from us. And that's when the woman screams, "He's dead! Dead! Leave him alone!" My driver finally brought her into the other room as he's the biggest of us. After 3 discharges, the doctors and police arrived. Probably something didn't click right in the operator's mind when he talked with the man's daughter. After the 4th discharge, we had a return of spontaneous circulation, the second one I've ever witnessed. Of course, the man was not entirely okay. Even though his eyes were open, he couldn't do much more than pant heavily and scream that he was in pain. My colleague then took over, as I, the supervisor, went out of my way to talk with the officers about the woman's behavior. I say to him, "Hey man, can I talk to you for a second?" The officer says, "Sure." So we went to a separate room, and I described to him all that happened. Our arrival, the daughter talking about how he fell from the stairs, her sudden outburst, not letting us try to save her own father. Everything seemed so suspicious. After a few minutes, the doctor comes in and asked my colleagues to bring the stretcher in and take the old man in our ambulance, and then asked me to stay. The doctor then starts asking me a ton of questions: how we found him, in what position, if we noticed anything about him, as well as a copy of my form about him. When he was done reading, he told us that there was no way that man should have been able to walk on his own, as he was using really heavy sleeping pills. It was basically like saying that someone who just underwent total anesthesia suddenly woke up and started playing chess. He told me that someone must have brought him to those stairs, as there was no other way. The police officers immediately handcuffed the woman and proceeded to read her rights, as she was the only person in that house. She was basically the only suspect. That's when she started attacking the officers, screaming, kicking, spitting, and even tried to run away, to no avail. In my 8 years as an EMT, I've seen my fair share of things, as you can imagine, but I have never ever heard or saw anything like this. We were shocked, to say the least, but in the end, we still managed to save a man's life. Yeah, so to me, it sounds like that daughter was attempting to murder her own father that day. Like, what a bizarre story, right? Like, what kind of person calls an ambulance and then is like, "Oh, don't bother trying to save him, he's dead already," and then gets mad when EMTs try to save that person? I don't know about you guys, but definitely very suspicious vibes going on. Like, was she looking for an insurance payout, getting an early inheritance? We'll never know. So this isn't a story about an entitled mother that I just happened to run into and had to deal with. This entitled mother is my mom. So here's some backstory. This happened last year around May. I was at a town festival with my children, who were 6 and 7 at the time. My brother and mother don't get along very well. They both think they're better than everyone else and are never wrong. Since he turned 15, they've been at each other's throats. So at the carnival, I'm wandering around with my children and their father when my phone starts going off over and over again. When I answer, I hear my brother on the other line crying and begging to come stay with me. I tell him where I am, and that the only way he can come and stay with me is if it's alright with our mother, as she's pulled outrageous stuff in the past. He goes on to tell me that she's been drinking and she's busted the door to his room trying to get to him. I don't know how much of this I believe, as he's a bit dramatic and tends to embellish stories. And that's when I get a call while on the phone with him. It's my mother, and before I can answer, it goes to voicemail. So after I calm him a bit, I agree to hang up with him and call mother to see if I could calm the situation a little for both of them and to get her side of the story. The truth is usually somewhere in between their two stories. So I go ahead and hang up and check my voicemail, and the voicemail's my mom. It's her yelling into the phone saying, "Listen here, young lady, you'd better not even be thinking about coming to get him. I will call the police and say that you kidnapped him, or that you're aiding and abetting a runaway. And you will go to jail. Don't you dare test me." As I stand there a little shocked, I decided to call my mother and explain that I told him no, and that I would only come get him if she was completely okay with it. The phone call goes something like this. I basically say, "Hey mom, I'm sorry if he or I gave you the wrong idea. I told him I wouldn't come get him unless..." She then cuts me off and says, "Unless I'm drinking or he wants to run away." I say to her, "No, I told him I wouldn't come get him unless you were okay with it." My mother says, "Oh, I'm sure that's what you said." "Well, I won't have to worry about it because I've already called the cops. I told them about your plan to kidnap him." I say to her, "Mom, I'm at a carnival with my children, your grandchildren. I'm not coming to kidnap him. What the hell is wrong with you?" She then screams at me saying, "You will be arrested for this, and then you'll both learn who's in charge here. I brought you into this world and I can damn sure lock you up." At that point, I just angrily hang up the phone. Since we're at a town-wide event, there's police officers out and about keeping the peace. So I go up to one of the officers and I ask him to please verify that I'm at a carnival in a public place, and I have no intentions of kidnapping anyone. The guy looks confused, so I tell him my side of the story. He chuckled and agreed to stay with me to verify my whereabouts and intentions. It turns out she did call the cops, but they came to her house. And since she technically had no reason to call them and was being disorderly, and she and my 15-year-old brother were drunk, she was arrested. She then had the audacity to call me from the jailhouse and ask me to bail her out. I just said to her, "No, you might consider it a kidnapping. I can't take that chance. Sorry." She wasn't very happy with that. Guys, I love how Opie handled that in the end. Like, if mom has no problem using the police as a weapon against her kids, she should have no problem facing the consequences of her actions. Like, who the heck calls the police on their own daughter? And if I'm in Opie's shoes, it's gonna be no contact with mom as soon as possible. Like, kids are never seeing their grandma. At least not anytime soon. So I'm a 28-year-old female, and I broke up with my boyfriend, who's 38, on Christmas Day, after we exchanged gifts. I also have a lot going on. I'm moving houses, and I'm dealing with a new job position. Despite that, I took time to buy him and his daughter, who's 16 years old, presents that they could enjoy. To be fair, there is an income gap between us, but even a pair of affordable earrings could have made me really happy. Because the house is a mess, I even closed off the living room with curtains, so the stack of boxes and things wouldn't make the Christmas decorations look ugly. I also made sure the tree looked nice, that I bought the food he likes, and I made myself pretty for him. So he arrived, and the first thing he did was make fun of my makeup. He also made fun of my Santa hat. He laughed like I'm some sort of ridiculous cartoon. We ate, talked, and then I gave him my present, which were AirPods, which he loved to the point of posting on Instagram. His daughter got her present as well, and I'm very glad she loved it. He then took her back to her mom's house, and he didn't get back in an hour like he said. We were supposed to spend time together, but he came back 3 hours later, because his mom had visitors and he wanted to catch up. When he came back, he sat watching TV and he gave me zero affection. That's when he gave me his present, which, to be honest, I would have preferred to not get anything. I'm not a drinker. He knows I'm not a drinker. He knows I hate drinking. But you know what he got me? He got me a small wine bottle that I've seen marked at $3 to $5 at the 7-Eleven. I know I wasn't at my best because he said my face changed. He has a job, and he could have gotten something actually thinking of me. I felt horrible when he said he'd give me an IOU, and that the rest of my present was in his pants. Now, I ignorantly thought that was some game. Maybe he had a small gift inside his pants. But no, I was supposed to take his boy parts as a gift. And at that, I was furious. It was cheap. It felt vulgar, and in that moment, I asked him to leave, and thanked him for giving me the worst Christmas, and took back the present I gave him. I cried after he left, and when he texted me if I was okay, I broke up with him and blocked him. His siblings have all been trying to reach me, and I've blocked them all. And one of them even accused me of being materialistic and shallow, and also said that not everyone has a fancy job and that I'm being very entitled for expecting a certain level of gifting. So am I the a-hole? Oh my goodness. So reading this post, guys, I could not help but feel so bad for OP. Like, she put so much effort in for this guy, and in return, she got the worst Christmas of her life. Like, holy cow, do some people ever suck. And no, OP is in no way the a-hole at all in the situation. Because she didn't break up with him because she's entitled or materialistic. She broke up with him because he showed that he literally does not care about her at all. And the lack of respect for her is insane. Like, even if he couldn't afford gifts, it's the thought that counts, right? Like a thoughtful homemade gift or something, anything would have been better than getting your spouse a $3 bottle of wine when you know they hate drinking. OP definitely deserves better, and don't even get me started on how he laughed in her face when she tried to look pretty for him. And the comment about the rest of your gift is in my pants. Holy. Thank goodness she took back the AirPods she gave him, because he doesn't deserve a damn thing. Guys, let me know what you think though. Did OP do the right thing? And how would you have reacted in this situation? So I'm in my late 20s and I live alone, and I really hate kids. My neighborhood is a group of separate houses without yards that are spaced close to each other. I've lived here for 5 years by myself and it's perfect. It's everything I've ever wanted. There's no yards to take care of, no kids around making noise. It is perfect. The houses share a large T-shaped cement driveway, and none of us have ever interacted with each other. We come and go, stay quiet, and mind our own business. There's a small park down the street with grass for those who want it, literally a 30-second walk away. So about a year ago, a guy with a lot of little kids moved into my neighborhood. As always, I just drove past him like anyone else and closed my garage. Never spoke a word to him. No problem. Over time, he started making himself at home. The guy would park his large truck anywhere he wanted, and oftentimes he would block his neighbor's garage across from him. Not only that, but he would set up lawn chairs in front of his neighbor's garage and have his kids out there running and screaming in front of people's houses and garages. We would have to listen to his kids' screams and then try not to run over the children as we back our cars out of the garages. The guy also had a motorcycle that he would rev at 8 a.m. on a Saturday and wake up the whole neighborhood. When his kids would be blocking the driveway, they would take their sweet time moving. Because of this, I did one simple thing. When I would come home every day and drive past and around them, I wouldn't wave when he waved at me, and that hurt his pride. And the guy should have left it at that, but no, he had to press the issue. So he started waving more, and then shouting at me as I drove past, and then even telling his kids to stop and stand and wave at me. I always drove past and ignored them all. That is, until eventually, he didn't like how I drove around his kids that were in the way. So he tried to confront me. He shouted at my car, and then came to my garage as I was getting out of the car and had the garage closing. So it closed right in his face without me ever looking at him. He didn't like that, so immediately he walks to my front door, saw that I had a doorbell camera, turned around and walked away. A couple of days later, coming home, he was in the driveway as I arrived. And because he told the kids to stop and wave at me, the idiot stops right in the middle of my garage with his kids. He stood in my way to block my car, so I honked for 3 seconds right in his face until he moved. That was our last interaction, and I decided he's annoyed me enough. Another thing is, I live in an HOA. I don't really care about the rules, but I decided to use them all to report him endlessly for every violation I knew of, using my dash cam on my car for screenshots with evidence. His parking anywhere he wanted stopped after they gave him a ticket. He also had to throw out the child's playhouse he'd set up right next to his garage. I kept reporting him for having an open garage door that I don't really care about. It only took 4 months of reporting him repeatedly, and the guy just moved out. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /EntitledPeople. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode, where OP's boss messes up big time and tries to put the blame on him. It's such a ridiculous story, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.